Well, two things. First, the most consistent thing I've heard growing up from normies, from people I know, my own siblings and just people at work is what you said. It doesn't matter. Like my vote doesn't matter. Nothing ever changes. They all suck, right? Both sides suck equally, right? That kind of attitude. Um, and I think that does feed in if you do at least do enough of the heavy lifting to be like, okay, I'm on the left, and pick your fighter, pick your faction or whatever, right? Which I do want to talk about that because you kind of go through some of that in the book too.
Mhm.
But this really gets into, like you said, the left has had so little power for so long. Neoliberalism has us all atomized. Unions are weaker than they've ever been. And just like the civic togetherness and engagement that we used to once have, whether it was at union halls or through so many other institutions, this doesn't exist.
Just associational life in general. I mean, this is something that sociologists have been talking about for decades. How like people used to have like bowling leagues and stuff, and now they don't even do that. Right? We're bowling alone.
Yeah. And but
Yeah.
this gets us into what something that rings in my ears from your book is pathologies of powerlessness,
Mhm.
especially on the left. Can you explain what that is, and then it really helps us make sense of what we see going on.
Yeah. So what I'm referring to as the pathologies of powerlessness is the idea that a lot of what's wrong with the contemporary left is wrong with it because even though things have started to change for the better, and that's still true. I mean, like right now we're still reeling from some very bad defeats that have happened recently. But if you pull back a little bit, wider view, um, things are. I mean, look, I'll put on my old man hat here and say that, like, I remember what it was like. I remember what it was like to be a leftist in like 2002, right? Like I was 22 years old in 2002. I
Hmm.
remember what that was like, and yeah, relative to how things were, like a year and a half ago, we have like suffered some very real defeats, but things
Yeah,
are like unfathomably better, right? Than they were in 2002 or 1996 or anything like that. Like there are like if you yeah, I mean if you told you know like there was a so recently in American history, if you told somebody you were a socialist, like they'd be like, what? Like,
yeah,
okay, right? Like,
yeah.
it
I
was
mean,
like,
it
yeah,
reminds me of on and like I said, we'll get to your the book you're working on now, which is about Christopher Hitchens. But because he identified as a socialist, there was that guy on C-SPAN who every time he went on, be like, "Are you still a socialist?" Right? Because it was so wacky and crazy that you would dare, in the age of Thatcher and Reagan, even deign to call yourself such a thing, right?
oh, totally. I mean, like, there's that clip that I remember Michael played on TBS of one of those old C-SPAN appearances
Yeah.
where some woman calls and she was like, "I don't know about this Christopher Hitchens. He seems way too liberal." And he's like, "Madame, you have insulted me more than you know."
Yeah. Yes. So, and that's so you're 22 during the invasion of Iraq, right? I'm
Yeah.
in high school,
Hmm.
right? I'm a high school kid, so I'm a bit behind you. You're the like, what do they call you now? Geriatric millennials or
Yeah, that's right.
something?
That's right.
Very rude, very
Yeah.
rude. I call myself a early batch millennial, but I guess you're a millennial too. So what the hell?
Right.
But
I,
I
I was
rem-
I was a zennial until 2 weeks ago when they made up geriatric millennial. So I
Oh
don't know.
yeah, okay, there you go. Exennial or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But I remember 9/11. I was like in 8th or 7th or 8th grade, and then the war in Iraq. And I live in like a pretty conservative agricultural city on the central coast of California, Santa Maria. If you ever had tri-tip, we claim tri-tip like Santa Maria style barbecue, right? We have a rodeo, like all this cultural stuff is here.
Yeah.
And while I was in high school, that's when I woke up politically and began getting involved in left politics. And we had the Michael Jackson trial happening here. because he, Neverland Ranch is off in San Ynez Valley, which is like rich wine country from Sideways or whatever.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and so he was coming to town. There's worldwide media. What did we do? We went there. We protested the war, And I just remember at that time, it was like I remember right wingers in my town being like, "You goddamn liberals," and that kind of thing. And so, like, it is a weird thing that the deeper you get into the left, all of a sudden, it's like the Mr. Krabs meme where it gets all blurry. Like, you mean liberals bad here too? And that's what I think about when I think about this penchant for wanting to, just like you see it on the left, call someone a liberal for the wrong take. Oh, you care about electoralism, you lib, what I mean? That kind of thing.
No, I see a lot of that. I get a lot of that. Although it's also, I don't want to do like I don't want to do like a left analog of the way that, to go back to how old I am. I remember, God, I had like a Republican housemate who used to watch Bill O'Reilly all the time, and I remember O'Reilly would do this thing where he'd have like one like email from like a viewer who was mad at him from from the left, and one who was mad at him for the right. He would like establish how balanced and good he was. So I don't want to do that thing here. So no conclusions about like actual correctness or incorrectness of any of these positions, but yeah, there are like people who will, there are people who are basically very mad at me perpetually because my sins are that like I said last year that if you live in a swing state, you should vote tactically, and and that force the vote never really made sense to me. Sorry, guys, but and so like for those people, I'm a lib. But then there's like this whole other group of people who are mad at me for like a bunch of other takes, for whom I'm like, I don't know, probably like a secret Trump supporter who wants a red-brown alliance or something like that, which is
buddy. Yeah. So
but I did just want to say, like just wrapping up a point about the pathologies and powerlessness, that
yes,
okay, things are much better than they were. The doors of political possibility, I don't want to say have swung open, but they've at least opened a crack, a significant crack compared to where they were, for some sort of agenda that's actually to the left of liberalism. There are possibilities now that there didn't used to be, but I think we've got a ton of bad habits that are left over from a point in time, which I all too vividly remember when anything to the left of liberalism was just like subculture fringe stuff that like had no interaction with real world politics. And under those circumstances, it's very easy to, again, see politics as a kind of symbolic moral commitment of your opposition, taking a stand against the many very real injustices around you, rather than actually trying to change the concrete world. And I would argue that tons of the things that we mess up on the left sort of flow out of that mindset, that we're interested in showing that we have like the real, like we're the ones to, oh no, look, this guy over here, he says he's taking a stand against the way things are, but I'm really taking a stand because I'm willing to, whatever, I'll escalate from a lot of Cold War propaganda was misleading, and anti-communism was itself, excuse to prop up authoritarian regimes. That's not quite spicy enough, so I'll escalate to like Comrade Stalin did nothing wrong.
Yeah. The tanky chapter, right?
Yeah. Like it's a small example maybe, but I mean, I think it's one of many symptoms of this kind of mindset that I'm calling the pathologies of powerlessness. I think, and I think that like the general, without going through all the examples, I think the general through line that you identified earlier is this kind of pervasive moralism that we, even though we're the left, we're supposed, on paper we're supposed to be relatively uninterested in individual morality, since
Yeah.
So like that's what conservatives are all about. Where we're interested in trying to change systems and structures rather than focusing on individual people. But in practice, we're not, right? Like very often, we are concerned with nothing but the level of individual morality and sort of trying to peer into people's souls, and I think that a lot of the things that we get wrong come out of that.
Yeah, and I think what that makes me think about is if you're kind of going from that moralistic place, then well, since we're the left and we're the good guys, it's okay when we do it, right? And we can pile on, and it's also. May I read an excerpt from your book? Actually,
So that's it.
very cool. This is from the Genealogy of Left Moralism, page 92, paragraph 2. But you say, this is the Ladybird response, which I
Yeah,
found really interesting, right? In the 2017 movie Ladybird, the title character, teenage Christine Ladybird McPherson, has a fight with her boyfriend. This is so great. The boyfriend is a Chomsky reading leftist. When Christine starts to complain about how he's handled their relationship, he icily tells her that 1 million people died in Iraq. Her response is that more than one thing can be bad. When censorious Twitter mobs gang up on someone for a tweet taken out of context and people spew all sorts of toxic nonsense like the victim, the fact that vastly worse things are going on in the world isn't a good enough reason not to tell everyone to knock it off. Even if the only reason to tell them to stop is that they're being cruel and people shouldn't treat each other that way, even when nothing much material is at stake, that's a good enough reason to do so. More than one thing can be bad. And this is what I appreciate about both your books, is that you cut through a lot of the very typical arguments that people make that they think are just good enough. You know what I mean? Like, oh, you're going to care about whatever, Louis C.K.
yeah,
jerking
right.
off in front of people when, what about Honduras? What about
Yeah,
Syria? But at the end of the day, like you said, we can care about these things, right?
yeah, for sure. And so that's and then also very good movie, doesn't get enough love, but it's,
Still haven't seen it. I need to see it.
yeah, yeah. But uh, yeah, a little bit like Linklater's Boyhood, but like not 7 hours long or whatever like that was. Uh, so, but in any case, yeah, I mean, so that's one thing, right? Like, I think that
Mhm.
like just in principle, just on a human level, this is a bad way to treat each other, and that would be a good enough reason to cut it out. But also, I will point out that what I argue immediately after that passage is that these things are also not um, really separable from each other. By which I just mean that it's not just, yeah, okay, in a world where much worse things are going on, you still shouldn't treat people that way. True, right? But
Mhm.
also, uh, precisely because all of these more important things are going on, we shouldn't do things that make the left toxic and alienating to the people that we want to win over. Precisely because, like what I say in the book is that there's a certain kind of line of response to a lot of the things I'm criticizing in the book, not just the sort of cancel culture stuff, but also, um, but like a lot of the different left pathologies that are criticized in the book, there's a way of responding to it that I know pretty well because for a long time it's pretty much what I told myself, which goes something like this: Okay, all of this shit is annoying. Granted, I don't like it, but how big a deal is it? We live in a world where Amazon warehouses exist, where police violence and murder exists, where imperialist wars exist.
Ocean's full of plastic.
Yeah, yeah, all that stuff, right? Like
Yeah.
like this just doesn't rate. So yeah, it's annoying. I don't like it, but like I'm not gonna worry about it too much.
Mhm.
And I still think that that's a good response to people who respond to all the stuff being criticized in the book by saying, like, doing the Dave Rubin, right? Saying like, oh, therefore I'm gonna like leave the left and I'll be a conservative,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like if
Yeah.
that's your response, if that's what you're saying, then what I just recited is like actually still a correct response to that. But
Yeah.
but the reason that I don't think that it's a good response to people who actually are still on the left, who raise all of these problems with so many of the things about the way the left operates, uh, is one, the ladybird point, that you just read, but two, that precisely because Amazon warehouses exist and we have oceans full of plastic and we have police violence and imperialist wars and all these things, we need to build a effective left, and all of this stuff makes the left ineffective. So that, to
Mhm.
my mind, is the most important reason to critique it.
It makes it look like no fun at all. It
Yeah, which
really
most people don't want to have anything to do with. Like
exactly,
you know,
exactly.
we get into this like weird moralistic thing where we're like, well, I mean, if anybody's alienated because of anything that's not objectively, the most important thing, then that means they're a bad person because why aren't they prioritizing this other stuff? It's like, okay, maybe. Although also, I think there are lots of understandable reasons why many people um, just don't have that much time and headspace for politics. And like, if the minute that like we've got their attention, like we present ourselves in a way that they don't like, then
Mhm.
that's it. That was our minute. And,
Yep, that was it.
yeah, exactly. And um, but I think the real issue is, look, who do you want? Like, what do you think realistically most human beings, including most human beings whose material interests should align themselves to that program, who do you think that they're going to want to spend more time with? People who present themselves as overgrown hall monitors, who seem to devote their lives to sort of monitoring each other to find infractions they can denounce one another for, or people who seem like they might actually be interesting and smart and fun to hang out with. I mean, what's the more? I mean, I'll just do. I mean, I don't want to fall into sort of reducing down like real left politics to like media personalities. I think generally that's a mistake, but like let's just do it for a minute.
Okay.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
know, like what's the version of the left that you think is going to get more people in your corner? Is it going to be Jimmy Dore red face screaming into the camera about how people are sellouts? Or is it
Mhm.
going to be Michael Brooks making people damn near piss themselves with laughter about
Mhm.
Nation of Islam Obama, and then transitioning from there to like a graduate seminar level of nuance about the Middle East or something with Gene Bajalan?
Yeah, yeah.